Imagine waking up at 3 in the morning, not because your alarm went off, not because the baby cried, but because somewhere in Austria, a 20-something girl from Manila is about to walk onto a tennis court, and you physically cannot sleep until you know what happens. That is where this story begins. Not with a trophy, not with a press conference, with 3 million Filipinos refusing to close their eyes. What she was carrying, Eala stepped onto that court in Vienna carrying something no racket bag could hold. She was carrying every kid who ever picked up a tennis racket in a country that was supposed to love basketball and boxing and nothing else. She was carrying the hope of a diaspora scattered across 12 countries, people who had not been in the same city in years, who suddenly had one reason to get on a plane. And none of them, not the fans, not the analysts, not even the airline, had any idea what was about to happen. Where she came from to understand what Austria meant, you have to understand where Eala came from. Manila is not a city that bleeds tennis. It bleeds basketball. It bleeds boxing. It has produced legends in both, names that fill arenas and make grown men cry on national television. Tennis was always the sport on the cable channel nobody remembered subscribing to, the one you stumbled across at 2 in the afternoon and watched for 20 minutes before switching back. It was not the sport that made Filipino mothers call their sisters at work to say, "You have to see this." And then this girl showed up. She started young, the way all the great ones do, before the world had a chance to explain what was not possible. By her early teens, she had already made coaches take real notes. Not polite, encouraging notes. The kind you keep. She ended up at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain, which is not a place you go if you are moderately talented. That institution operates on a philosophy that is almost violent in its simplicity. You fight for every point. You treat every game like it might be the last one you ever play, and you never, not once, let the court defeat you before your opponent does. That is what shaped her. Not just technically, but somewhere deeper, in the part of an athlete that either breaks or does not. She did not break. She came back to the tour carrying red clay in her shoes and something behind her eyes that people could not quite define, but absolutely could not stop watching. The tournament, when the draw for the Austrian tournament was released, the tennis media did what it always does. It focused on the favorites, the top seeds, the names that had been in the conversation for years. Eala's name appeared in the bracket, and the general consensus was something like, "She's competitive, she's improving, she's one to watch." One to watch. As if what was coming could be reduced to a footnote. Her early rounds were clean, sharp, efficient, the kind of wins that make coaches nod, but do not break the internet. But if you were watching carefully, something was there. A stillness between points that felt almost wrong for someone her age. Like she had already decided something the rest of the match had not yet caught up to. Then came the quarterfinal. Her opponent was everything you would expect in a genuine test. More experienced, higher ranked, someone who had been in these moments before and understood exactly how to manage the pressure. The crowd was polite. Expectations were measured. On paper, it looked like a reasonable hurdle. It was not a reasonable match. The match that changed everything. The first set was the kind of tennis that makes you forget you are watching a sport. Both players trading holds, breaking each other, trading again, the crowd slowly leaning forward in their seats without realizing they were doing it. There is a particular silence that descends over a stadium when something real is happening, when a match stops being a match and becomes something you feel rather than analyze. That silence appeared in the first set and never quite left. Eala lost it in a tiebreak by 2 points. She walked to her chair, toweled her face, looked at the ground. 7 seconds by most accounts. And then she looked up, not desperate, not rattled. She looked like someone who had just made a decision. The second set belonged to her almost entirely. The forehands got heavier. The angles got sharper. She started reading the serve, not just blocking it back, but attacking it, turning the most defensive moment of the game into an offensive weapon. She took the second set 6-3, and the crowd, which had started the day as spectators, had quietly become something else. The third set is the part that stays with you. They fought through every game until the score sat at 5-5, and the whole stadium was on its feet. Not because anyone told them to stand, but because their bodies had made the decision before their minds did. Eala broke. She served for the match. 3 match points slipped away, her opponent refusing to accept what was coming. The noise in that arena was enormous for what had been a quiet afternoon draw. And then on the fourth match point, she hit a backhand down the line.
Clean, precise,
Perfectly weighted. The kind of shot that exists in the thin space between calculation and instinct. Her opponent stood at the net for a moment before extending her hand, as though she needed just a second to process what she had seen. Eala won. She covered her face. She stood in the middle of that Austrian court and cried. And 12 time zones away, an entire country cried with her. What happened next here is where the story stops being about tennis. The Filipino diaspora in Europe is enormous. Millions of people spread across the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and the Netherlands, carrying their culture everywhere they go. The food, the language, the music, the bone-deep certainty of being Filipino no matter how many years have passed since they left. When Eala's win went viral, and it moved fast, something ignited in those communities that skipped past rational calculation entirely. They wanted to be there, not watching on a phone, not following a feed, physically present in Austria, in that stadium, when she played her next match. Travel agencies run by Filipino expats reported volumes they had not seen in years. Facebook groups that normally discussed restaurant recommendations and shipping packages back home were suddenly flooded with flight screenshots and urgent hotel questions. Philippine Airlines, watching their booking system light up in real time, did something no airline had ever done for a tennis player. They announced 200 additional flights. Not seats.
flights,
Expanded routes, rerouted capacity, regional connections from Vienna's surrounding airports, a logistical operation that normally requires weeks of planning, compressed into hours. The flights went on sale at 6:47 in the morning, Manila time.
Buy,
Philippine Airlines books extra flights after tennis win. The player who moved an airline. Vienna preparing for something it has never prepared for before. Tennis had seen fan culture before. It had never seen this. Not for this. The backlash, and what it revealed there was, of course, a backlash. There always is, and this one arrived right on schedule. Tennis forums, which possess a particular talent for cold water analysis, began picking apart the win. The opponent had a minor injury, said some. The draw had been soft, said others. The fan reaction was disproportionate to a quarterfinal at a mid-tier tournament. And then certain commentators attempted to describe the Filipino response and reached for words like adorable and charming, but perhaps premature, which, if you understand anything about Filipinos and their long generational relationship with being underestimated, was approximately the worst possible framing they could have chosen. The response was immediate and sustained. There were also quieter, more pointed questions about whether media attention was proportional to her ranking, whether she was being elevated beyond what her results had earned. Some of these were fair questions. Some were skepticism, wearing the clothes of analysis. And then there was the suggestion that the airline numbers could not possibly be real, that 200 flights selling out in 4 minutes was logistically impossible or at best exaggerated. Philippine Airlines released the data. Every seat, every flight, verified. Most of the skeptics went quiet. What the backlash ultimately accomplished, beyond generating considerable heat, was to transform Eala's next match into something considerably larger than a tennis result. It had become, without anyone planning it, a statement. What she said, and then Eala sat down in front of a microphone and said something nobody expected. She was calm, not performed calm. Not the managed composure of someone media trained within an inch of their personality. Genuinely, almost alarmingly calm, the kind of quiet that tells you a person has already arrived somewhere that everyone else is still trying to reach. She was asked about the flights, about the pressure, about what it felt like to carry a country's hope. She paused, not searching for words, deciding how honest to be. I don't think about the flights. I think about the people who didn't sleep to watch me play. That's what I carry. Not the pressure, the love. 2 sentences. Journalists who had covered sport for 2 decades reached for their notebooks. She did not call it a burden. She called it fuel. She talked about growing up and watching tennis on television and never seeing anyone who looked like her competing at the level she was aiming for. She talked about the academy, about training until her arm ached and her mind was telling her to stop, about chasing a version of herself she could feel but could not yet see. And she talked about the fans with a tenderness that was difficult to sit with without feeling something shift. They change shifts. They book flights with no hotel. They do all of this for me. And I want them to know that when I'm out there, I see them. I really see them. That is the line. That is what the 200 flights were actually about. Not tourism. Not spectacle. A diaspora that had spent years watching sports that never had room for someone like them, finally having someone to see. The semifinal, and what it meant the semifinal that followed, was not her best tennis. She lost in straight sets to the eventual finalist, a player who had been inside the world's top 20 for 3 years, a woman who was simply better on that particular afternoon. The defeat was not a collapse. It was the honest kind of loss, the kind that comes from facing someone further along the road. But nobody who was in that stadium walked away feeling like they had witnessed a defeat. They had watched something happen that had nothing to do with the scoreline. The larger truth: Philippine sport has produced giants. Manny Pacquiao made the whole world stop. Carlos Yulo made history on the gymnastics floor. The national basketball team is practically a religion in a country that takes its religion seriously. But women's tennis at the professional global level had been a blank space. Not because the talent was absent. History has never supported that conclusion, but because the path, the investment, the infrastructure, and the belief that it was even possible had simply never materialized. Eala did not just fill that space. She made people realize the space had been empty all along. And that is a different kind of achievement. It does not appear in rankings. It does not fit neatly into a highlight reel. But it is the kind of thing that changes what 12-year-old girls in Manila believe is available to them. And that matters in ways that outlast any tournament result. Think about what 200 flights actually represents, not as a number, but as a decision made by thousands of individuals simultaneously. Every one of those bookings was someone choosing to rearrange their life, calling in a favor, shuffling a shift, justifying an expense to themselves or to someone else, because a girl from Manila was playing tennis in Austria and they needed to be there.
Sport can do that.
One athlete on one court in 1 week can make that happen. Not often. Rarely, actually. But when it does, you are watching something the scorecards cannot measure. Where this lands, Eala will lose again. Every great player does. And the ones who become truly great tend to lose in instructive ways, in ways that rebuild them. There will be tournaments that go sideways and seasons that test her in ways even the most rigorous academy training does not fully prepare you for. That is not a warning. That is simply what the road looks like. But the people who booked those flights, the ones who maxed out a credit card or slept in an airport because the hotel was gone by the time the flight confirmed, they are not going anywhere. That kind of support does not follow a ranking. It follows a person. And Alexandra Eala, somewhere between a backhand down the line in Vienna and 2 sentences about love versus pressure in a post-match interview, became the kind of person people follow to the end of that road. So here is where we land. Not with a trophy, because she has not won one yet, not at this level. Not with a Grand Slam, because that chapter has not been written.
But with this.
A young woman from a country that was never supposed to produce her, standing on a court in Austria with tears on her face, while 200 planes full of people who look like her made their way across a continent to say, "We see you too." That is the story. That is what happened in Vienna. The only honest question left is the one nobody can answer yet. How far is she going to take all of us?